This video I want to speak about loving the past. This topic is very relevant to meditation and trying to become more skillful in meditation, become a master in meditation. It's a lifetime of work and it's extremely difficult because basically you're talking about the mind right now and the power of the mind and how you can use the mind or not use the mind to get to higher states of consciousness and awareness. This is something beyond the physical. But loving the past, that's something that even I struggle with. I've been training in martial arts for so long and studying meditation for so long, so many years, and even to me, my mind goes back to the past, and mainly I want to indicate like loving the past. Like when you experience something so beautiful in the past, it makes it so much harder to let go of it. And the pain of trying to let go of those memories of that past, it could cause a lot of pain, suffering. It could cause depression. And a lot of these celebrities and these rich and famous people, I know that they experience this, and that's why you have some celebrities that may be very depressed, severely depressed, or they're on drugs, or some of them commit suicide, like Robin Williams, for example. Or you just kind of wonder, like, why are you so sad and depressed even when you have all this money? Because people think that, hey, if I have millions of dollars, I'll be ecstatic, I'll be so happy. But they don't know, because they're striving for something that they'll probably never even achieve, so they'll never even know how it feels to be in that position. But people that have already there, they're already in that position, they know how it feels. But then they also know, that even though they get to that point, the happiness is never constant. Like, it's never like guaranteed. Without meditation, the happiness, it will not last. It's gonna be momentary, just like the happiness of the people that are still striving towards, riches and fame. Their happiness is momentary as well. So it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or if you're middle class, somebody that's doing okay but just not a millionaire. Doesn't matter. Like, the mind is still gonna operate the same way in both instances. That happiness is only gonna be momentary. Because when you love the past so much, you keep falling back onto it. So, say, you're in the working world, you're in your 30s, high school it was over a long time ago. But then you can start thinking about, those days when you used to be in the high school football team and how you were like the most popular kid in school, and you had certain girlfriends that you fell in love with. And when you start thinking about those things, you're dragging your mind back to the past instead of being in the present moment, and then you start reminiscing of the past. This is what they call it. And that, it already indicates that, hey, this present moment is not enough. And the past is over. You can't go back to high school. Everybody's moved on and they're doing their own thing in their own lives. You're not going to be in the high school football team anymore. The people that used to look up to you don't look up to you anymore. Things change. And then when you keep thinking about those things, it could bring a lot of depression, you know. And that's one of the drawbacks of having a past that's very beautiful, or having an experience that's very beautiful. I mean, if you're going through a lot of suffering in life, it can only get better. So in the future, you're not going to be thinking about the past because it's not going to be anything you want to think about, because it's going to be easier to let it go because it was such a horrible past that you're just thankful that at this moment you're no longer going through that suffering. But when the past is very beautiful, you keep thinking about it. It's like you're daydreaming. It's like you become unconscious to this moment. It's like almost like you're asleep, because your vision is clouded. You're not focused on the moment. And I think no matter who it is in this world, they're gonna deal with this. Everybody gets old. Everybody's gonna die. Everybody's physique is gonna change. Everybody's gonna end up getting gray hair. Everybody's teeth is gonna end up falling out. Everybody, they're gonna deteriorate. And if you're not strong in meditation, it's gonna be hard to not think about the past and how you used to do, how you used to be, and the things that you were able to, do in the past. And especially with modern technology, it's like we're videotaping everything. Like everything. Not just videotaping, but taking pictures too. Like Facebook is all about pictures and videos. YouTube is all filled up with billions of videos. Daily Motion, Vimeo, all these video-based sharing sites and all these picture sharing sites like Instagram. It's like this our phones can take videos. We got pictures on our phones. It's like we're so addicted to taking pictures. We're so addicted to filming that we're capturing every single moment of the past. As soon as we capture it, it's no longer in the present, it's of the past. And when we have all these images, we're surrounded by all these images, all these videos and all these pictures. It can make it a lot more difficult for the mind to be in the present moment, because those photos, those videos will bring back memories of the past. You start looking at a picture of yourself 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You start seeing a picture of you and your ex-girlfriend 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And then it ends up bringing your mind back to the past. Like, hey, if it was a beautiful moment, you'd be like, hey, those were some really good times. I wish I could go back to that time. That's already taking you out of meditation. It is taking you out of this moment. Or you have a picture of yourself when, 20 years ago, you're in really great shape. And you look at the picture and you're like, wow, this is how I used to look like. You look at Michael Jordan with all those videos of him playing basketball. You could end up watching the videos and say, hey, that's what I was used to. That's what I was able to do in the past. That's what I used to be able to do. That was me back then. Not now, but back then that was me. Muhammad Ali could look at his videos from the past and be like, hey, that used to be me. That was me. And they watch those videos and they get so attached to it that it causes suffering for this moment. Because then they start thinking about, I wish I could still do those things that I used to do, but now I can't. You know, people will always look at those pictures and then be like, I wish I was young again. And it's almost like with our own lives have almost become like a movie where you're not even engaged in real life anymore, real living. Because when you go to a movie theater, you're not really living. You're just sitting there, almost hypnotized. It doesn't matter if you're watching the movie or if you're asleep. It's almost the same thing. You're not moving. You're just, this information is just being fed to you visually. And then with the audible. And it starts formulating, programming your mind at that moment. But when you're going to a movie, you're looking at the lives of imaginary characters on screen or actors on screen. But this also happens with our own lives. When we look at our own lives, and then we start thinking about the past. And that's one of the downfalls of beauty. Like when we label something as this is a beautiful experience, automatically it's inevitable. The experience is not going to last forever. The experience will end. And when that experience ends, then we need to be prepared for the downfall after, the depression. Because now the experience afterwards does not seem to be as beautiful any longer compared to the past, because you've already labeled something to be so beautiful that there's nothing that could really replace that beauty today or in the future. So you just think about like people that are famous now, that are rich now, like Mayweather, for example, has millions of dollars and he's undefeated and he just retired, but through time people are going to pay less and less attention to him, and they're going to give that attention to somebody else. And then people could get so used to that attention that to let it go, it's almost like death. It's almost like they'd rather die than to let go of the life that they used to have. Every single celebrity in this world will go through that. And that's that's one of the downfalls of being a celebrity, is everybody's looking at you. Everybody's putting you on a pedestal. Everybody's admiring you. Everybody's idolizing you. Everybody's looking up to you. But there will come a time when they'll no longer idolize you. They'll no longer admire you. They'll no longer look up to you. They'll no longer have you on that pedestal. Then you just become forgotten. And to somebody that's not well trained in meditation, it could bring a lot of pain and suffering psychologically, not physically. Well, it can turn physical, because psychological pain and suffering, as far as depression and sadness is concerned, can lead to physical pain, can lead to illnesses. And when we live in a society that values people only for certain things, it's going to be very difficult to not fall into that trap. Because you got somebody like, who's considered like extremely good looking right now. People say like Kim Kardashian. Well, there's going to come a time when she will get older and she's not going to look the way that she looks. And people forget all about her until they look to the next woman. And that's the thing, you know, when you're just judged by your physical appearance and you're just valued just for that, you're going to be inevitably falling into that trap. It's like a momentary feeling of happiness because the physical does not last too long. But if it's something mental, intellectual, like an Albert Einstein, then that at least goes beyond the physical, where you could be respected and loved and by the people for many years, many decades, even till your death, because the mental, the intellectual, usually functions pretty well, almost pretty much gets better through time. Like an Albert Einstein, like a Sigmund Freud, or, you know, these professors, these doctors, I mean, they could be respected for a very long time. So the mental, the intellectual is beyond the physical. So if people are valuing you, your presence, for intellectual purposes, it's not going to be as bad as the physical. You're not going to fall into that trap as quickly. Because even when you're 60 or 70 or 80 years old, people can still look to you with much respect. And then that's not going to cause much depression within you because you're still valued within this society. Just like, you know, when it comes to intelligence, people should naturally see that when somebody's older, they should be more experienced and they should know more. And then they could gain respect for that. Like doctors and lawyers and professors and people that value the intellectual. That lasts a lot longer than the physical. Now what's even beyond the intellectual is the spiritual. Then you're talking about people like Buddha, Lao-Tzu, Osho, and Jesus, where their inspiration and the respect towards them lasts an entire lifetime and beyond. So people are still following Jesus even though he died thousands of years ago. Same thing with Buddha. Because the spiritual goes beyond the physical, it goes beyond the intellectual. It's like, it's something that's almost pretty much eternal. Like it doesn't die. And when you focus your energies on the spiritual, then you transcend death. And then you don't lose that respect because you're not valued by the society based on something that's momentary. So if you look at these fighters, they're only valued and judged for their physical. People only look up to them when they're winning. As soon as they lose, everybody loses all respect for them. And you see that trap. You win 10 in a row and then all of a sudden everybody looks at you like you're a god. As soon as you lose one time, they lose all the respect for you and then they give it to somebody else. And it's the same thing with women, you know. You're young, you're seen as beautiful, you know. You got a nice body, you know, you got nice skin, and your hair looks nice, but then as soon as you get older, you get pregnant, or your body starts changing, you don't look the way that you used to look, all the people lose that respect for you because you allowed them to just judge you based on something momentary. Now, if you're not a fighter and you're an intellectual, you're a professor, You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a philosopher. You know, you're somebody that values that mental development. Then your respect could last a lot longer than the physical. It could last essentially almost till you die. But even Albert Einstein, his intelligence was deteriorating as he was getting older. Towards the end of his life, he started losing respect because people felt that he was just kind of delusional. And it's the same thing that happened with Sigmund, not the same thing, but something happened to Friedrich Nietzsche, where he just went mad. He had a lot of respect as a great philosopher, but his mind just got out of control, and then he just went insane. And he had to be put in a mental hospital. So the intelligence is not, it's not the highest level, but it's a higher level than the physical. You know, because somebody that turns 50, 60, 70, 80, his intelligence could be so much sharper than somebody who's younger. People that are young, you know, tend to be perceived as naive, and they just don't have enough life experiences to understand. So people don't really turn to them for much knowledge. So that's why you see, when it comes to professional athletes, they always depend on the coach, because the coach is pretty much representing the intellectual development. The athlete's just representing the physical. So you combine the physical with the intellectual, and that increases the performance. Like Mike Tyson without Customato wouldn't really be Mike Tyson. You know, Michael Jordan without Phil Jackson wouldn't have been the Michael Jordan. It's like everybody's looking towards that coach for the intellectual. And you just look at the coach, look at Customato, he's not in great shape. Look at Phil Jackson, he's not in great shape, but they got strong intelligence. And they're valued for that. And even as they age, you know, they could have a missing leg. They could have arthritis. They could have gray hair. They could be very weak physically. But if their brain, if their intelligence is strong, society values them for that, then they're not going to fall into that trap of depression as early on as these athletes are falling into it. Or these supermodels, where they're only judged and valued, you know, for their physical appearance and their athletic ability. And then when you get to the spiritual, as I stated, you know, that's beyond the physical. That's beyond the mind. It's like your spirit touches another person's heart, and you become part of that universal existence where your spiritual energy just doesn't ever die. It just gets transformed. So I could see the spiritual energy of somebody like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X. It transferred onto somebody like Tupac. And then the spiritual energy of Tupac and Bruce Lee and Osho and Buddha and Lao-Tzu, it transferred onto me. You know, and it's like the spiritual energy just jumps, you know, from place to place. It just never dies. It's like water, like Bruce Lee would say. It's just like water could flow, it could crash, it could freeze. Like you can't really destroy water. Like it's always like there. And that's kind of how spiritual energy is. You can't destroy it. It's there. And that's the highest level right there. So that when people remember you, they don't just think about, oh, he was really fit. Or they just think about like somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's just valued for his physique during his bodybuilding times. But then he got smarter. He jumped into politics and became a governor. So then started to, encourage people to start valuing him for his intelligence. But if you think about him, trying to look back at his life and how he used to look compared to how he looks now, if he just looked at himself and judged himself based on the physical, he could get pretty depressed pretty quick. So it's very important to grow beyond the body. Start valuing the mind. And then eventually develop that spirit. Because that spirit is the key. And that's what meditation will teach. To be in the moment. Every moment. To not hold on to the past. Because if the past was great, to even think about it, to even reminisce about it, to even be stuck on it, is making you unconscious, is making you unaware, is making you take this life for granted. It's like you're sleeping while awake. And then if the past is horrible, full of suffering, then it's pointless to even think about it. To even reminisce about it. Because it's just going to bring that pain into this current moment, which is all self-inflicted. So in a way, especially in the world right now where everything is getting videotaped and there's so many pictures, in a way, sometimes there's a benefit to not even paying attention to any of those pictures or videos or any of it, but just staying focused in this present moment, in awareness. But those are some thoughts that I wanted to share. That is worth reflecting on.